is. So today I'm here to announce that Fight Island is on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi. And, you know, just like I said about Florida, when we went to Florida, how the commission and the government worked with us there to pull off this fight, same thing with Abu Dhabi. These guys have been amazing partners in everything that we've ever done with them. So we're going UFC 251 Saturday, July 11th in Abu Dhabi. And we literally just got Usman versus Burns done. So that card has Usman versus Burns, Volkanovski versus Holloway, Peter Yan versus Aldo, Jessica Andrade versus Rose Namajunas, and Ribas versus Van Zandt. The first card in Abu Dhabi is ridiculous. The second fight will be Wednesday, July 15th, then Saturday, July 18th, and then Saturday, July 25th. And Abu Dhabi has actually created this safety zone on the island within 10 square miles on Yas Island will just be inhabited by us. And it'll include an arena, hotels, training facilities for the fighters that are private so that, the whole COVID-19 thing is covered, dining establishments, and yes, there is an octagon on the beach.
Well, appears to be a good move for combat sports fans when Abu Dhabi, well, this is 2 or 3 years ago, right? It started coming out. Let's move away from oil and toward tourism. This seems to have paid off for combat sports fans, Dana, and I want to get into all that stuff. But I have to ask you, just as a fight fan, there are 3 names in the news right now as it relates to the UFC. One of them just said he retired. 2 of them are kind of going at you on Twitter. What are your thoughts on Conor McGregor, John Jones, Jorge Masvidal?
Yeah, so Conor McGregor is frustrated right now because, look what's going on. Look at what we're pulling off. We're literally just going, to Yas Island right now to pull off these fights because the hardest thing to do right now is to get people into the country from other parts of the world. And we are a true global business. We're the only one, the only ones that are pulling off live sports right now. And if I continue to do fights in the United States, I'm going to burn out all my American talent. So now we got Yas Island ready to go. It's set up. And this is just a matter of Conor being frustrated, I think, and that he can't get what he wants right now. But it's just not possible. And he wants to fight Gaethje. Gaethje just won to beat Khabib. I mean, he just won to get the fight with Khabib. He just beat Tony Ferguson. Conor had the opportunity to slide into that spot if Khabib or Tony fell out. He came back and said, I'm not a replacement fighter. I'm not going to do it. He would be in that position right now if he took the fight. He didn't. Gaethje did, so Gaethje gets it. John Jones just signed a new deal less than a year ago. He's got 8 fights left on his deal. What do you want me to tell you? The guy's got a deal. Same thing with Masvidal. Masvidal just signed a new deal 7 months ago. These guys both have brand new deals that they were more than happy to sign less than a year ago.
Yeah, I think the Masvidal and Jones are interesting cases that I think you'll probably explain away, but my history in labor unions and sports in particular kind of makes me a little biased on this particular side. But if it were just those 2 guys, then I feel like I could get on board and understand your explanation. And I obviously understand how businesses work, but there's a long history of issues with the labor in UFC not feeling that they are getting just payment or the treatment that they deserve. So can you speak to the long history rather than the specific individuals?
Does anybody feel like they make too much money? Nobody does. These guys just, listen, if we were talking about a thing where, these guys had old contracts from 3 years ago, and it's like, come on, that was 3 years ago that I did this deal. It's real. They signed these less than a year ago. Right. This was months ago. By the way, I don't know if you know this, but we're in a pandemic right now, and all the sports are going. Oh, by the way, every other sport out there is arguing over money right now. I haven't laid off one employee. I haven't asked any of my fighters to take less money, and you don't hear me out here crying about, no, I don't get any gates. I don't have this. You don't hear me crying about anything. I'm running my business. I'm paying everybody. And right now, if you think it's easy to be a business owner right now, here and today, you are right out of your mind, okay? Because there's never been a harder time to do business than right now. Guess what? I'm pulling it off.
Well, you can't say you're not crying anymore, and you just said it's a hard time for business owners. But I do think that it's important to
Is that me
understand that
crying? I was just explaining. That's not
there's
me
different
crying. I was just
leverage.
explaining to
The
you.
point
I
I'm
was just
making is,
explaining to you.
all right, the leverage is different. So, like, saying that they just signed contracts doesn't speak to the leverage that they have in negotiation. Just because they signed contracts doesn't necessarily mean that the contracts are fair. I'm not informed enough to know whether contracts are fair or not, but I understand that when there's a track record of a number of athletes over a period of time having an issue with someone or a company, then that seems like a group that needs unionization in order to have the leverage to get the things that they want. I know Molly has a question for you, but that wasn't a question. I was just kind of making a point.
Oh, no. I want you again. Welcome to the
can't
fight
wait.
business, my friend. And so right now we're in a pandemic and all this stuff is going on. Do you see me trying? We just signed a contract 8 months ago. You see me saying, oh, no, this is going on and that's going on. I have to pay you less money. Let's talk. No, I'm paying them exactly the same amount of money no matter what's going on. In the history of this company, I've never asked a fighter to go backwards ever.
I mean, that you could argue that suggests that maybe they weren't making enough if their pay is not an issue. But I'm not saying that you're having trouble, that we should applaud you. We should certainly applaud you for keeping your business running and not letting any people down. I certainly wasn't looking to fight you like Dan Le Batard. I'm not looking to fight you at all. I'm just bringing up the idea that there's another perspective that makes perfect sense to me. Given my background, I understand how difficult it is to run a business right now. So we applaud you for all that. We applaud you for not taking their money down. But just because you're not doing anything bad doesn't mean that the situation is fair for them. And again, I'm not trying to be confrontational because I don't know the ins and outs of this business, but I do know the ins and outs of sports labor. And I know that when you have a bunch of angry, upset athletes, there's normally a reason why they should be angry and upset. So I was just speaking to that.
Well, again, I have 630 fighters under contract, and we're talking about 2.
Right now. Go ahead, Molly.
Yeah,
okay. I'm not trying to brush aside the labor thing.
It seems to me,
I'm not trying to brush aside the John Jones or the Conor McGregor thing here, Dana.
Molly, I'd just like to comment on that real quick.
Okay.
I'll give it to you once again. I think
ahead.
whenever you have a league with a large middle class, which is absent in boxing, for example, then those who would normally make on the upper end of the tail, right, of the bell curve, are not going to be satisfied because in boxing, the cuffs are off, so it's much more laissez-faire, and Mayweather and others, and Canelo, can make the lion's share of the money, which in the UFC, they see those boxers' salaries, and the top guys who think they can get top money are upset. On the flip side, the UFC has a large middle class that boxing doesn't have because the distribution, like other major sports leagues, it's more in the middle, and there's more kind of cost certainty with the fighters. Dominic, is my understanding of how it's run. And Dana, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
That's fair context that I didn't have. So I mentioned at the top that I wasn't fully informed on it, but I thought these are important questions that we can't just brush away by telling the story of John Bones Jones and Masvidal. Like 2 individuals, I think doesn't represent the whole population. Maybe I should have done more preparation. That's on me.
No.
What did you want to ask me, Molly?
Last thing here, Dana, I just wanted to go back to, I know we talked about John Jones and Conor, but I started covering the UFC in 2006, way back in the day when MMA Live first started. We've seen a lot of stars come and go, and I'm really excited about this Fight Island, and I commend you on the fact that you're able to pull this off and how resourceful you've been, and you've continued to give us live events, and I've enjoyed them every Saturday. So I know you mentioned some of the fights that'll be on UFC 250, but if you could just tell people at home that are more of like the mainstream fan, who are some of the future upcoming box office stars?
Yeah, well, listen, I think Gilbert Burns is fighting Usman. The kid's fought 4 times in 9 months. He's well-rounded. You look at the guys he just beat. He just beat Woodley. He just beat Damian Maia. He beat Gunnar Nelson. And now he's going to take on Usman, which, by the way, we just did a new 6-fight deal with Usman. We got that done. Also, I know I'm not answering your question right now, but we just got Stipe Cormier done too. Stipe Cormier is done. That fight is going to happen August 15th. I do not have a place for that one yet, but the trilogy with those 2 great heavyweights will happen this summer.
Dana, while you're here, I got to pitch you a fight. I know others have talked about it too. But McGregor seems to be retiring for me, partly because I don't think he has any wins against Khabib. I think that a third fight with Diaz is interesting, but the fight I'm dying to see, because of the styles, because he'd be the underdog, but I think it would bring out the best in him, is for him to go up at this point and take on Masvidal.
And the
big personalities, both aggressive, both strikers. I would love to see that fight. Your thoughts on that potential fight, Masvidal-McGregor?
Anything is possible. I know in all the talks that I've had with Conor before the pandemic and all this stuff went on, you know, he wanted that fight with Khabib. He wanted to fight Khabib again. And, you know, a lot of crazy things have happened. Khabib versus Tony was supposed to happen in April, and then all this broke out. I think that the best thing for Conor to do right now is what he's doing. Sitting back, spend time with his family, stay in shape, and see how this thing plays out. He can go for a shot at the title, and he can always fight Masvidal. It looks like Masvidal is going to be fighting anytime soon, so that fight's not going anywhere.
All right, last question, quick one. So can I still come to Fight Island even though we argue?
Yes. I argue with everybody. This is
no problem.
And everybody thinks I'm yelling and I'm mad.
Oh, no, I'm cool.
But Dan Le Batard's an idiot. We all know that.
Fair. When I get there, I'm unionizing the fighters.
Dan's my guy. No, so is Dana.
All right,
listen,
thanks, Dana.
if the fighters want to unionize, that's up to them. That's not up to me. That's up to them. I mean, there's been union talk for 20 years in this sport.
All right.